This is the session on the first session of APrIGF, one of the two early session at 9:30 of this face-to-face APrIGF again, and so nice to see all of you. We have actually this morning the session that's going to be on disinformation. Disinformation and how to combat it. We want to look at particularly two angles, two types of disinformation campaigns, health-related COVID-19, as well as in many countries, particularly election politically oriented disinformation. And then the question that we want to ask, that we want your opinions on, is about what is the best way to combat disinformation? Is it going to be government regulation? Is it going to be self-regulation? Or is it going to be what we call multi-stakeholder digital literacy? So we're very happy to be co-organizing with the ICT Watch, our large group of friends from Indonesia, and also with my co-moderator, Gustaff Iskandar. So he's going to be helping us with the on-site moderation. And I want to very quickly introduce our speakers. And this is in the order of alphabetical order that we are going to have. First, Alice Budisatrijo from Meta, Asia Pacific, based in Singapore. And then we have Indriyatno from ICT Watch. And then Dr. K.S. Park from Korea University and OpenNet. And also remote from Indonesia, Rizky, Syafitri from UNICEF. So I hope I got that all right. You help me. So I want to quickly turn the time over to Gustaff to help from Common Room to help me with starting off with the first question that we want to pose to our panelists about disinformation and particularly maybe health issues. Go ahead. All right, thank you, Charles. Without further ado, I think this morning we're going to have a very, one of the most important discussions of our time in terms of disinformation and misinformation, in particular to COVID-19 pandemic outbreak. And as a first questions, I think we would like to ask some of the speakers on what kind of specific learning experience, either best practices or even an error and failures on dealing with disinformation and misinformation challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak. So we would like to have that question as starting point, and I hope Rizky can also hear us from afar, and maybe we can start with Alice first, and then continue with Kang Ibe and Dr. Park, and then maybe Rizky will continue from there. So the floor is yours. Thank you. Try to speak into it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Gustav.
Yeah.
Charles. Good morning, everyone, and it's really a pleasure to be part of this. So the first learning that we took at Meta is how misinformation about the pandemic continues to evolve. And so in order for us to tackle it effectively, we have to really keep up with it. Because as social media, we have a responsibility to want safety and expression. So we can't be too restrictive and unfairly sort of remove people's individual expressions and disproportionately limit discussions about what people are worried about in terms of symptoms, in terms of remedies. And there has been changing information from the health experts. Right? One day, the health experts are promoting certain cure, and then the next day it was found to not be very safe. And that's just natural because of the nature of something like the pandemic, where the problems are new and the information, reliable information continues to evolve based on ongoing research that continues to be done. And so at Meta, we have a three-pronged approach to tackling misinformation. So we remove misinformation that is harmful, meaning that could risk imminent physical harm to people. And then that includes, obviously misinformation about the pandemic. So in the beginning of the pandemic, when we started noticing the trends of misinformation such as false cures, false prevention, false information about the existence of the virus and public health services, we consulted with the public health experts to really find out which kinds of misinformation that could actually get people to be more likely to get sick or infect others. And then we published the kinds of claims that we would remove from the platforms because they violate our policy. And then for other kinds of misinformation, we work with independent third-party fact checkers. And so when they review a content and rate a content as false, then we reduce the distribution of content. So if it's on the platform, a lot fewer people will see it. And then we also have informative labels. So when people see content about they often also see information, links to information from the public health experts. And when a piece of content has been rated false, people will see a clear false label and link to the debunking article from the fact checker. So through the combination of these efforts, we've been able to slow down the spread of misinformation about the virus without disproportionately utilizing people who genuinely want to have discussions about it. Okay. I think I'll stop right there.
Thank you, Gustaff, Charles. Good morning, everyone. I think everybody here knows Meta, but I'm not sure that you already know the ICT Watch yet. So let me introduce ICT Watch first. ICT Watch is the Indonesian CSO who concerned about the digital literacy, and we have already campaigned what is issues since 2002, so almost 10 years now. And I think during the pandemic, hoaxes related to the COVID-19 and also the vaccination is spread. Not only, I think it's globally, not only in Indonesia. So what we do in this pandemic issue, infodemic issue, we call it four C's. There are four C's that we do the collaborative work with every multi-stakeholders. First C is the capacity building. So we try to conduct the online education roadshow to many cities in Indonesia, collaborate with the local campus and also local communities there. And also after the pandemic decline, we also conducted the hybrid workshop with this issue as well, with the several local campus. And the second C is the content development. We try to build the education content with online classes in the Udemy for hoax, and invite resource person from various organizations like the COVID-19 task force from the government, the fact check journalist alliance, and also from the police and so on. We also make the short documentary movie called Hoaxinasi. It's from hoax and the vaccination, and we try to portray the perspective of the people who still think that this COVID and the vaccination is just the conspiracy theory. We try to see the perspective of them, what they think about this pandemic issue. And also we made some animated videos for education, short animated videos, collaboration with well-known content creator, and post it in their social media so it can be reach many people. And third G is the community engagement with the local approach, such as together with WhatsApp Indonesia. Since 2021, we are supporting local young people. We called this program is Jawara Internet Sehat or Stable Wellness Local Champion to carry out the educational program with the local wisdom approach and try to fulfill needs of the local communities. We also support the local artists. Then we know they have been badly affected with this pandemic, to create a traditional folk theatrical performance, and we try to broadcast it online with the anti-hoax message. So we hope that this kind of approach not only touch the artists but also the people. And then the last one is the co-creation. We try to create the web page as a simple web page from the link tree, but we try to combine all aggregate the hoax debunking tools. So we know that a lot of debunking tools has been developed, and so we try to make it into one page so people can easily use it. I think that's our experience, our work since the pandemic for the combating hoax. Thank you, Gustav.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. I was mainly recruit. You know that this session is an amalgamation of one session on COVID-19 and the other session on election. I was mainly recruited to speak about election, but I can share experience from Korea on disinformation in general. Only last month, about 140 victims who were punished for disinformation back in 1960s under the military dictatorship of General Park were granted compensation for forced imprisonment. They were jailed for spreading false information about state of emergency and the new constitution that the military junta declared back in I'm bad with numbers, 1967 or so. It took about 50 years for the country to realize the harms of criminally punishing false information. And this is consistent with the positions of many international human rights bodies that punishing information for being false will only stamp out attempts to correct the falsity. Because in many cases, the reason falsity, truth becomes so important for people is because there is a debate. The reason whether masks are good for people or not was the reason that was debated only was because COVID-19 was so new. So there had to be vigorous debate to really get down to the truth and spread the confirmed truth. So therefore, criminal punishment for false information is not a good way to protect the truth and promote spread of truth. And COVID-19, for COVID-19, South Korea has learned the lesson through our experience with election-related false information laws, so that South Korean government was not very active in criminally punishing false information about COVID-19, but the country still came out strong and healthy.
All right, thank you, Dr. Park, for your critical remarks on this. And maybe Rizky, you can continue from. I hope you can hear us clearly from here.
And I think we can switch this to the main screen.
We would like to see Rizky.
Yeah, so we can see Rizky on the bigger screen. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear my voice.
Yes, we can hear you clearly from here.
Great, thank you. So my name is Rizky, you can call me Kiki. I'm working at UNICEF Indonesia as the social and behavior change specialist. But today I'll be also talking on behalf of the RCCE working group, that is communication and community engagement for COVID response here in Indonesia. So UNICEF together with IFRC was facilitated this RCCE working group. So misinformation clearly affect the acceptance of both not only COVID-19 vaccines in Indonesia, but also on routine immunization for children. In the beginning, before the government rolled out the COVID-19 vaccination program, UNICEF together with WHO, Ministry of Health, and then the NITEC conduct a survey to basically understand the level of acceptance from public in terms of COVID-19 vaccination. Around 70% of people saying that they're willing to be vaccinated. Around 25% are still in doubt, and 5% say no. But even more interesting than that, since the healthcare workers is the priority group for the vaccination in the beginning of the vaccination program, because we know that the vaccine supply is still very limited at the time, the COVID-19 vaccine acceptance among healthcare workers is also quite low. It's around 54% at that time, in December 2020. So it's really important for us to understand what is the concern. So we conduct another survey with Nielsen and found that the adverse event following immunization, and as well as the concern about the vaccine efficacy became one of the major reason why people are still in doubt with COVID-19 vaccination. And a lot of information and hoaxes were circulated on social media. So the 3 lessons learned from that situation is that we really need to strengthen the process of detecting and debunking the hoax, which include the social listening exercise, and then fasten the fact-checking operation or the clarification process, which most of the time involves checking the regulation, checking the SOP and all of that, and then to provide public with the easy-to-use tools for them to kind of independently check the information that they receive on social media. And then another thing that is really crucial is to help the team to kind of formulate an interesting content to clarify the misinformation. Because again, as you may be aware, people who spread hoaxes and misinformation are very smart and use kind of emotional kind of tone to influence people. I think we really need to learn from them as well, and to be able to formulate a clarification that is also interesting for people to read and to share that with others. The second one, I think Mas Ibe from ICT Watch has mentioned about the importance of digital literacy to public, and this is including a very basic skill to be able to identify which one is hoax, which one is not. And this is where the behavior change intervention come in, because sometimes it's quite difficult for public if you ask them to kind of check the technical aspect of the content, but for them to understand the feeling, the emotion that they're feeling after they read or see the content on the internet or social media, that really helps them to understand. So this might be something that is not true. This trigger my negative emotion. This trigger hates. This trigger confusion. So that kind of emotion should be considered as a characteristic of hoax, and for people to kind of try to calm and then not to respond to the news that they receive immediately. And then the coordination for countries like Indonesia. Well, I mean, our population is 270 million people, a lot of different organizations involved in the hoax busting or misinformation or infodemic management effort, Ministry of Communication, but then Ministry of Health, for example, is the sector that receive a lot of benefit and also a challenge from the hoaxes and misinformation. Academia, civil society organization, even platform like Meta and others should be part of it. So coordination both at the national and subnational level is really crucial to kind of strengthen the effort of epidemic management in Indonesia. I'll stop here and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Over to you, Gustaff.
Thank you, Rizky. And apart from the COVID-19 pandemic misinformation and disinformation, I think we can also discuss about what is about the social and political impact in particular to political elections. Is there any particular learning experience that we need to share and discuss? Also to critically reflect what is the pattern and what is the upcoming challenge that we need to anticipate. Maybe we can start with Alice again. Yeah.
Right. So for election-related misinformation, at Meta, we have voter suppression or voter interference policy. So that is a policy that we publish so people can see exactly what kinds of content we would consider voter interference. That would be misinformation about the dates, location, methods of voting, who's eligible to vote, who's actually running. And because of COVID-19, we also would remove claims that if people turn up to vote, they would get COVID. Okay. So this policy is enforced using human reviewers that have local contacts. So different kinds of different permutations of how people make these claims would be removed when we become aware of it. But the problem is, as I think we all know, a lot of election-related misinformation is misinformation about the candidates or political parties, which are a lot harder to make a policy on, because the source of truth would be, a lot more unclear, right? And so for that kind of misinformation, we work again with independent third-party fact checkers. So in Indonesia, by the way, we have 6 fact-checking partners. And so these partners get access to sort of a special dashboard from us that has potential misinformation. And when they rate a content as false or altered media, then we reduce the distribution of the content, and then we show the fact-checking label so people can learn more about the false claims that people are spreading. And another thing I want to mention in terms of our policy is, so we differentiate between misinformation and disinformation, right? So misinformation is false news that could be spread unintentionally, because a lot of people actually spread these things because they genuinely thought it was true, even though it's not. Whereas disinformation is false information that is spread with deliberate intent to mislead people. And everything I just talked about so far is how we tackle misinformation. Whereas for disinformation, we have a separate policy and systems whereby we look at the actors and the behaviors. And so we look at signals such as whether a certain claim is being spread using fake accounts, among accounts that coordinate to amplify a certain claim that is not supposed to be as prevalent as it is. And when we find these signals, we actually take down the entire network. And so it doesn't matter what the account posts, they will lose the account, and then we will not allow the same actors to create another account. And we have a system to detect when an actor that is already removed for violating our policy tries to create a new account to keep spreading what they're trying to spread. So with the combination of these things, I think it's how we tackle political and election misinformation, again, by balancing speech and safety. Because otherwise, as Dr. Park said, we do not want to disproportionately penalize people, especially with something like elections. There's a lot of issues that people want to discuss, a lot of issues, people want to criticize, and we don't want to disproportionately penalize people for doing that.
All right. Indriyatno, 20 years focusing on digital literacy and advocacy in Indonesia. I think you have quite a lot of experience and examples on how we're dealing with these issues.
Yeah, 20 years, but still going on. And I think the challenges about this issue is more and more, and so what we think that in 2024, Indonesia will have the general election, the parliament members election, president election, and also the local leaders, governor and major election. That this will be the challenge for the disinformation issue, and I think the black campaign or the attacks on the election authority is already happened in 2019, and I think and I am afraid it will be happen in the following elections. So I think our experience is, well, we try our best to try to educate the people with some effort that I have already mentioned before, we maybe I think like the people should aware about filter bubble social media algorithms. It is like, you know, that we give the social media give like not only brought our insight, but also it can be simplify our opinion, because what we read, what we see in the social media is what we want. Yeah, in this with this filter bubble algorithm, and also the post-truth era remains a matter what we need to concern for the people. So I think hoax it will be challenging for this next election, but I'm more afraid of this disinformation, misinformation bring people into divisions. It's already happened in 2019, friends being enemy, and even some divorces happen because the husband and wife choose the different president, choose the different candidate, choose the different local leaders. So yeah, I think we not only hoax that we have to educate the people, but how the social media shape our mind into shape our mind about this our choice for this election. I think this is also important.
Thank you. Dr. Park, maybe you can give your remarks and reflections on what we can learn from South Korea, also in other countries as well. Yeah.
One of the reasons that policymakers believe election-related disinformation needs to be specially treated and specially punished as opposed to other general disinformation is because election takes place over a short span of time, and people believe that false information, even if it is later corrected, will have adverse impact on the election. So countries around the world flock to criminally punish election-related disinformation. But that is disproportionate, and that is, I mean, the urgency of the election is exactly the reason why you should not criminally punish disinformation. Because just as false information can adversely impact the election, the results of the election, criminal punishment can also adversely impact, can have adverse impact on the election, because criminal punishment itself will discourage people from having vigorous debate about issues where falsity and truth need be further debated. And therefore, there is a less and less possibility for the truth to come out, especially the information about corruption. It's not something that can be, information about corruption, especially at high level, it's not a low-hanging fruit in a pursuit of truth. It is hidden beneath these walls of power, the walls of secrecy that reporters, people, ordinary people have no access to. So any attempt to obtain information about corruption is bound to be based on very flimsy evidence, words of mouth, very unstable evidence, but that's how the discussion begins. That's how the crowdsourcing of information begins. You know, one person witnesses a politician, you know, driving somewhere. Another person witnesses the politician with you know, another, you know, maybe gang leader, right? These pieces of puzzle have to be put into a mosaic for the truth to come out. But if any one of the evidence is, or if anyone bringing that one piece of puzzle is criminally punished for having no or weak evidentiary basis for raising that information, for raising the question about the electoral candidate, then this process of crowdsourcing for the truth will be just nipped in the bud, and the truth will never come out. There is a case in point about this in Korea. In 2007, there was an election that elected President Lee. And during that election, an opposition politician accused the then presidential candidate Lee for stock price manipulation. Now, there, the opposition politician was criminally punished for disinformation, for election-related disinformation. And President Lee got elected, and even after that election, the Conservative Party again, from the same, the Conservative candidate from the same party also served another term. So for 10 years, this attempt to raise question about his involvement with the stock price manipulation was just completely suppressed. Now fast forward to 2020, 2 years ago, President Lee was criminally punished for stock price manipulation, which means for 10 years, the entire electorate have been in the dark about the corruption that the former president was involved in. These are the lessons that South Korea learned about the dangers of criminally punishing election-related information. I mean, election-related disinformation.
Thank you with that very important examples that we can learn from there. And Rizky, to be actively engaged in risk communication and community engagements effort in Indonesia, you also must have a very important lesson learned from that area.
Sure. Thank you, Gustaff. I think more and more now, in terms of terminology, WHO, UNICEF, CDC, we use the term infodemic now, because not only misinformation or disinformation, but too many information or uncoordinated information, inconsistent information, imbalanced portion of communication can also cause a lot of negative impact. So what I want to share is that the latest survey that we have with Nielsen, this is for COVID, but I think this is also very important to the upcoming election, that 40% of public in Indonesia couldn't identify whether or not the news that they received is hoax or not. And this is very important, especially during the election. And I think what the politician, government, platform like Meta and civil society in Indonesia, what they need to understand that how the election, the polarization in the election can also give a very negative impact in terms of health intervention, in terms of health outcome in the countries. For example, back in 2017 and 2018, the election at that time is in 2019, the government is implementing the measles and rubella campaign, right? The target is children under 14 years of age, and it should be 95% coverage, universal at national, provincial, and subnational and district. But then some, probably it unintentionally, but public start to think that for some political party that use the halal haram issue, for example, to gain support and popularity from public, use that a fatwa issued by the Ulama Council, for example, in Indonesia on a certain vaccine in Indonesia as haram, for example, and that caused a lot of hesitancy from parents to use the immunization service for children. Or where the health program like immunization is considered as a government program, so it will benefit to the incumbent, but not necessarily the other candidate. So that kind of polarization assumption can create a very negative impact on some of the development program, especially health and immunization in particular. So I think all the politician, political party, academia, platforms, civil society need to be aware of that. When we talk about how the election and how the misinformation circulated during the election can cause other negative impact in the country. Over to you, Gustaff.
All right, thank you. And I think we are coming to the key questions of our sessions, like either public policy or legislations can is an important tools to deal with the misinformation on disinformations, or the multi-stakeholder approach and community engagement is also one of the most important issues on these matters. And Alice, maybe you can give your reflections on that.
Sure. So at Meta, we believe that in order to tackle misinformation, what's most important is really, I think I echo, my fellow panelists here, is really the collaboration between private and public sector and civil society organizations. That is probably the most important. And the aim should be really to improve digital literacy, to build a more digitally resilient society, the kind of society that can be more informed before they share information online, that knows how to find the truth of information that they see online, and to be more discerning when they see information online. Because in the end, like the internet is has an unlimited number of content and information, and it's only going to grow, and there is no, I think, possible way for platforms or companies to get to every single one of content, and and for fact checkers to debunk all of them. So in terms of regulations, I think the sort of self-regulatory code, such as the EU code and the Australia code on disinformation, is, in our view, the most effective, because it offers companies the ability to develop bespoke systems that are fit for purpose, that fit the nature of how the services that we provide work, because different platforms actually have different ways to do content moderation, right? And so the sort of EU code and Australia code kind of schemes, they mandate us to report how our systems work, the effectiveness of our system, even the quantitative measure of the effectiveness of our system. And we're complying with that, and we are building the systems to transparently report these things. to the extent that a misinformation regulation is going to be pursued, we think that there needs to be clear principles need to be incorporated to really balance safety and speech. So in order to define misinformation, for example, it needs to be limited to verifiably false information, not opinions, criticisms and satires, which people should be free to share, right? And then it needs to incorporate the element of harm. So when misinformation could risk physical harm or offline harm, then platforms can be required to remove it. But otherwise, the focus should be on correcting the information, working with fact checkers, allowing people to find out the accurate version of the content.
Well, before we go on, I want to also acknowledge that we have a remote participation room from Jakarta. Donny is helping us coordinate over there. So if there's any feedback later on, do let us know. And also before the end, we hope that we have a little bit of time if any of you have anything urgent that you believe that you want to share with us. But I really think that the key question right now is that what do we do to move forward? We know that disinformation, misinformation is a problem. Health, COVID, elections, and so on, there are differences, but some companies, for example, platforms, as well as some civil society organizations are doing something about it. But at the same time, governments are also setting up laws in many different countries, including many countries and economies in Asia. So what do you think are the impact of these laws? Are they accomplishing what they are trying to do? And if there is any alternative, for example, Meta, you talked about, well, actually, Alice, you talked about some of these self-regulation codes that are in place in some jurisdictions. Are they effective? Or what I should say is, what is the better solution, if there is one, to engage multi-stakeholders in improving the digital literacy of the user, so that maybe that would that solve the problem? Or would a combination of all these solutions would be a better approach? What is your opinion on that? Maybe we will, I want to let maybe Dr. Park, you go first, and then maybe we can go, yeah, Dr. Park, you go first.
I already made my Korea-based cases of why criminal disinformation law is a bad idea. There are other reasons that criminal disinformation law is well, not just criminal disinformation law, but regulatory or regulation-based approach to disinformation is a bad idea. Because if you really look at the disinformation phenomena, there are three problems. One is state-sponsored disinformation is a lot of times much bigger problem than individual originated disinformation. Because when disinformation is state-sponsored, it comes with a brand of legitimacy and has really oppressive power on people. You can take the case of Russia in Ukrainian war, how Russians are really blinded from what's going on in Ukraine, what Russian forces are doing in Ukraine. So that's one thing. If you take a regulation-based approach to disinformation, who will have the handle on enforcement of that regulation? The government. But a lot of times the government is the source of this disinformation. That's one reason. The other, one big chunk of harmful disinformation is really hate speech against minority. There are a lot of false information going around, right? I mean, people of different religions believe that other religions are false information, are fake news. but still they do not cause harms. What disinformation becomes harmful when it is perpetuated by ruling minority against a weak, ruling majority against a weak minority for the purposes of persecuting them. So this means that it is not, the harm does not come from the falsity of information. The harm comes from the context of the information. It really doesn't matter whether the information is false or not. It really has something to do with who is speaking, against whom, through what channel, and the context of a power relationship between the people speaking and people being targeted. That's why regulation-based approach can misfire often, because regulation-based approach always starts out with a decision. Is this false or is this true? It comes through this binary approach, which can really, which really blinds people from the fact that the real harmful information is hate speech. It's really about racial, religious discrimination, which cannot be really accessed, remedied by regulation-based approach to disinformation. The third reason is that if you really look at disinformation, what really concerns people is not the falsity of the information. What concerns people is the pattern of diffusion of the information. How the automated trolling is propagating more and more information that are either hate speech, that are either state-sponsored propaganda. So it is really the pattern of diffusion that we should really focus on. And who knows the pattern of diffusion better than the intermediaries themselves, like Meta or the other players who have formed the platforms. And they have all technology to figure out, either through artificial intelligence, either big data, to really detect the source of automated trolling through bots. So that's why I think regulation-based approach is really, it will misfire. Just 2 years ago, again, in Korea, one online influencer was criminally punished for creating a software that automated adding comments that are supportive of a certain presidential candidate. There, he didn't do much other than using the open API. And it is something that many nonprofit nonprofit organizations do around the world, taking information, personal information from a lot of supporters and using the software to automate uploading of petitions to the government in various legislative process. And such criminal punishment on even the pattern of diffusion can also misfire as well. I'll get to that when we have time.
Yeah, we're running short of time, but anything to add from Indriyatno and Rizky on this very quickly?
Well, I mean, if I may, for election, that's probably true, but for pandemic or for the health-related issue where the people or agency or whoever spread the hoax and misinformation, they clearly gain a lot of benefit from what they're doing, and it costs a lot for society. it caused outbreak, it caused low coverage of immunization and vaccination. So for issue like health, I think we really need to see how, I mean, for health intervention like immunization, the evidence is there. It's clear that this is a public health, effective public health intervention. And for those people or any organization who spread hoaxes and make people think or make people in doubt to vaccinate themselves or their children to protect themselves from the infection, I think probably regulation will play a role here to kind of stop that. But again, digital literacy, for example, is a long-term solution, right? I mean, for countries like Indonesia, 270 million people, we are only in the beginning of talking about digital literacy, how we could, for example, include the digital literacy module into the education system, things like that, how we equip the healthcare workers with the digital literacy skill to be able to communicate it with the community. So digital literacy, I think we all need to understand that is quite a long-term kind of effort. But for, I mean, I'm quite agree with the issue for the election, but for issues like health, I think I really want to hear as well from other colleagues here in the room. What do you think should be the solution? I don't want to be sound cliche saying that we need to do everything, but I think regulation is still kind of help in terms of reducing a number of hoaxes circulated and for people to understand what are the risks of doing that. Over to you, Gustaff.
I think what I want to say is already mentioned by Rizky. Maybe we can continue to the floor, or maybe there is question from the online.
Yeah, actually, I just want to also say that there has been a lot of comments and questions on the chat, Zoom chat, from our online participants. And I'm, some of them were saying that can we show our speakers what's some of the questions, but I guess it's a little bit difficult because they have to turn themselves to the back to read some of these comments. But I think many of them are very good, and maybe we should afterwards go back to some of these comments and maybe collect some of the information when we draft our report for the APrIGF. But I really want to, because we're running short on time right now, I want to see if we have any comments from the floor. Yes, Donny, from your remote room.
Yeah, there's several comments, but I try to choose the three of them. One is from AXA from Indonesia to Dr. Kyung. Since you mentioned about criminal punishment and other examples, and besides rapidly evolving analysis of the various social, technological, and political dimensions of challenge, including the creation, spread, and impact of mis and disinformation, is there any recommendation or what policy solutions that are effective at scale while also preserving open and free information ecosystem? That's one. And the other one is from Roger from Autopolitik to Meta. What is Meta doing about cross-border election influence conducted by nation state, or a politician wearing a watch his salary cannot afford or he didn't declare on his gift declaration, or for 10 years the government shielded its leader, so the deeper issue is institutional independence. And the third one from Ying Chu Chen to everyone, comment. Elections should be in the national security topic. When we talk about media literacy, how about make people to have science literacy to ask why and find the solution? And the other opinion about the private chat, governance should not do censorship to the private chat room that makes user lose the freedom of expression. That's three. Thank you.
Okay, so do you, Dr. Park and Alice, do you have any feedback, quick feedbacks to those questions, and maybe we will have to round up our session. Alice?
Sure. On cross-border disinformation, so we do have a policy called coordinated inauthentic behavior. As I mentioned earlier, it's essentially our main way to tackle disinformation. So we look at signals of bad actors and bad behaviors, and that looks at signals whether a certain claim is being artificially amplified by coordinated accounts, especially if they're using fake accounts. So when we detect these types of behaviors and actors, then we take down the entire network. We also launched ad library a few years ago in response to issues, I believe mainly in the US, whereby actors from other countries were amplifying certain kinds of political issues in the US. And so this thing is now launched in many countries, including in many countries in Asia Pacific. And so when people want to publish an ad on Facebook that is political in nature, first they have to register. So we will know the identity, like the people behind it and where they're located. And if they're not based in the country that is actually holding the election, then they are not allowed to advertise that content on Facebook. And the political ads that are published live in our ads library that is publicly available for 7 years, even after the ads are no longer running. And so people can see who are spreading what messages and where they're from and who they and who they are.
Okay. Dr. Park?
Well, I think this is one example of a good solution to disinformation. Self-regulation by the intermediaries. Back in 1930s, the American media scene was a very divisive between right-wing newspapers and left-wing newspapers that were spreading false news on both sides. They all died out because even if you are really extreme right-wing, you want to get balanced information. That's what the consumers want. And for newspapers to retain their consumers, all the newspapers had to move closer to the center. Of course, I mean, there are still an exception, but mostly, you know, American media more and more gravitated toward the center to keep the to keep their customers. And same thing will happen with Facebook and other platforms. They'll have to do this self-regulation to keep people online. There are many, many platforms that just went out of business because people stopped going there because it was full of hate speech, it was full of disinformation. The idea is to let this ecosystem flourish, and the government should not try to either make use of disinformation or criminally punish disinformation. Either of it will be a poison for the growth of the ecosystem.
Well, you seem to be the optimist because people are saying that the world is different now because of social media, but I don't know whether that is your view. But I think we're coming down to the time that we need to wrap up. So first of all, we had one question that we want to talk about, which is about the technology impact, but we might not have any time to really talk about it, except if you can round up your thoughts in less than 1 minute for each of you about today's discussion. How do we move forward, and whether some technologies will become a solution like AI and metaverse will become a solution, or it will be causing even more problems. Any?
Yeah, like I think we also want to briefly discuss about the certain trends and what is needed to be anticipated with the upcoming technology developments like AI or, you know, with other.
Yeah, and Edmund is telling us to do this. So as quickly as you can, 30 seconds.
More time. It's okay to overrun a little bit.
Okay, to overrun a little bit. Okay, that I thought. Okay, so I got your signal wrong. So maybe we start with Rizky. Give us a bit of your final thoughts and whether some of these new technologies will be a solution or a problem.
Okay, thank you. I think digital literacy is really crucial, but again, this is a long-term kind of investment. And even in digital literacy, people were taught to understand the risk and also encourage to do something that is not make other people suffer, you know, like the digital ethic, what the do and the don't. So that's kind of help people to better communicate, have a conversation on social media, something that a colleague from Korea was mentioned. To have that conversation is really important. To provide that space for conversation is important. And this is a democracy. But I think a certain rule needs to be applied, especially for issues like health, where when the infodemic or misinformation or hoaxes are circulated, that could really damage countries in terms of having a risk of experiencing an outbreak or other disease that can actually be prevented by vaccination or other health intervention, for example. So I think that needs to be balanced. And again, I want to highlight the coordination for countries like Indonesia. There are different players, different capacities, different interests, and then based on COVID-19 experience, at least from what I see, is that the contribution from different institution and organization is really important, because there's always a gap. Either what government is doing, what civil society is doing, what UN agencies is doing, there's always a gap. And this is where I think the engagement from community is really important. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Park, Alice, or Indriyatno,
Anyone
do you
want to
have
go
any remarks on what is the upcoming challenge in terms of new technologies, AI, or even deep fake technologies?
Right. So I think I'll speak about, to wrap up how we will move forward from there. I think I want to echo what everybody says about collaboration and focusing on digital literacy. Personally, I support what Rizky mentioned earlier about getting governments to put digital literacy in the school curriculum. I believe Taiwan has done it. I hope more governments will do it. I don't know about any of you, but I remember having to learn calculus in high school, and I have never used calculus ever since. So why do we have to learn that? I think kids would be better off if they all learn digital literacy instead as a basic sort of requirement in the curriculum. Other than that, in terms of regulation, I just want to echo again that self-regulatory framework, I believe, is the most effective for platforms, so that platforms can build systems that can really tackle the issues based on the requirements that the platforms have, and to have them required to transparently report on the effectiveness of the system. And for governments not to focus on piecemeal approach like individual content, but to really focus on the systems. Thank you.
If there are harms coming from social media, it is based on technology, and we need technology to fight back. So detecting, again, patterns of diffusion requires operation of AI and big data. And it should be used actively by the intermediaries to flag or push out. It becomes a problem when regulation comes in and the government starts dictating which one should be suppressed, which one should be taken out. So I'm all for moderation, because moderation is also a form of speech. Moderation is a way for the humanity to become closer, closer to truth. And digital literacy and media literacy is important. As you saw in my title, I'm a professor, but also I'm heading OpenNet, a nonprofit digital rights organization. We also run media literacy program. Kyung Oh, sitting in the audience, is also leading the media literacy campaign. And digital literacy is also important because being able to Google search, being able to use the devices, allow people to obtain capacity to get to the more information and better information. And internet access is also very important. The UN Human Rights Council almost every 2 years repeats this resolution that what is protected online, what is protected offline should be also protected online. What rights protected offline should be also protected online. What they mean is, see, in offline, people speak and their speech evaporates into air. There's no way for the government to really track down each comment made by people offline. That freedom also should be present in online as well. People should be able to correct themselves. People should be able to come through. Somebody talked about, cracking down on private chats. People should be allowed to share, even if, partially false information, share the information with others to test it out, to really share their opinions. If you start cracking down on even private chats to, stamp out each false information, that's not treating speech the same online as offline.
Okay, I think maybe it's a little bit cliche, but multi-stakeholder is still a must. Meaningful multi-stakeholder collaboration still is a must, because from the upstream to downstream, the upstream we should conduct like the digital literacy, media literacy, and so on. In the middle, the debunking process, or like Dr. Park said, the self regulation by intermediaries should be done, and then the downstream, the regulation also is the important things to combating this. So I think my way up is back again is multi-stakeholder collaboration work.
All right, thank you. I think we need to wrap up, but we will not going to give you a resume. I think it will be more healthy to have more open and unresolved discussion on this. And as also reflected by Dr. Park, I think the critical debate and discussions on this matter need to be protected. Okay, thank you for all of you, including for all speakers. And we're going to have another session after this. And thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Picture. Donny, you want to come up? Oh, stand over there? Oh, okay. You want to switch to you want to switch it right now?
You can stay on getting the image.
They're switching it off.
By the way, there is a coffee in the back of the room that you can take free,
coffee.
For free.
Yeah, can you turn it off? Yeah. Okay. You come up. You come up. Give your phone to someone else. Okay.